Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. Last month I did a review on Bactine for piercing aftercare and why I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and y'all really liked that video. So today we are sitting down with, I guess, another part of this series on aftercare product reviews. We're talking about tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is a natural oil derived from an Australian tree, Melaleuca california. I'm probably mispronouncing that, and if I am, just let me know. I'm trying my best here. Tea tree oil is super popular and has been for the last couple of years. You'll see it in a lot of different hair care products, you'll see it in acne and skincare products, and it's even made its way into the piercing industry. It's one of those essential oils that's being touted as a miracle cure-all for everything. Antifungal, antibacterial, fixes your oily hair, fixes your dry hair, fixes your oily skin, fixes your dry skin, fixes your acne, fixes your athlete's foot. It's the latest, miracle homeopathic product that people are advertising. And I will say this, there are some studies that are really promising for tea tree oil for certain uses. But the key there is certain uses. So let's take a closer look at tea tree oil as a product. So right off the bat, I want to acknowledge that tea tree oil does have some really amazing antifungal properties. There's quite a few studies that talk about tea tree oil in uses for athlete's foot and other fungal irritations, and tea tree oil does some really cool stuff for this. But that's antifungal, and when we're talking about body piercings, we're not typically worried about a fungus growing on our body piercings, and if you were in a situation where you thought you had a fungal infection in your piercing, you should see a doctor. You should see a doctor, you should get things swabbed and tested. That would not be something to take lightly. So tea tree oil does show a lot of promise in that department. Not so much relevant to piercings though. Now, one of the next big places that we see tea tree oil is for acne treatment, and there is where it does tend to really shine. Tea tree oil is astringent, so it tends to dry out the area, and because of its minor antifungal and antibacterial properties, it does help with killing some of the bacteria that causes acne on our skin. That, coupled with the drying nature of tea tree oil being an astringent, does help to reduce acne, and there's been quite a few studies that have shown that tea tree oil is phenomenal at doing this when it comes to acne. That being said, it does tend to underperform other better tested products like benzoyl peroxide when it comes to acne. And while it did lessen acne and improve skin condition, it also very much underperformed the benzoyl peroxide. So while if you're looking for something natural for your acne, tea tree oil might be great, there are still other products that might be more effective. Now, athlete's foot and acne, these things are not really relevant to piercings, but what tends to happen is some form of product, especially a product that can be marketed as all natural or organic, gets really popular with good reason because it is really good for these few things, and we as a society just kind of like to run with it. Does everyone remember when we were taking shots of apple cider vinegar and washing our hair with it and washing our skin with it and doing all of this stuff with it, a lot of which it really wasn't beneficial to? Yeah, it's kind of like that. See, while tea tree oil does have some properties like being antifungal and antibacterial, those don't inherently make it great to put on every single wound that we have. See, every wound is a little bit different. A piercing is a form of puncture wound, which is very different from a burn, which is also very different from a scrape or an abrasion. And all of those are different from acne. They have different causes, they heal differently, and our bodies handle them differently. So it makes perfect sense that the care that we would use for a pimple on our face is not the same care that we might use for a burn on our arm. In 2009, the American Cancer Society reviewed uses of tea tree oil as an antiseptic for just regular wounds. And they said that despite years of use, available clinical evidence does not support the use of tea tree oil for treating skin problems and infections in humans. In 2012, they did another study looking at skin lesions in lice in children, and again, while tea tree oil was moderately effective, still less effective than other products we have, they did see a high risk of allergic reactions and skin irritations, and ultimately ended up recommending against tea tree oil in comparison to other safer methods. So when we look at the medical evidence that we have available, I think it's really important to acknowledge that yes, tea tree oil does perform very well at certain tasks. It's obviously proven to do well clinically for acne. It's proven to work with antifungal properties. This is in no way, shape, or form me saying that tea tree oil is completely useless. It has a lot of very amazing, very important homeopathic uses. I just don't think that puncture wound care is one of those. Now, when we talk about tea tree oil for piercing aftercare, most of the time you're going to see this suggested is when someone has a bump or an irritation on their piercing. It's very rare that people are using tea tree oil as their daily care for cleaning their piercings. More often, people get a bump or an irritation and someone's like, hey, put tea tree oil on it. However, there's two things that tend to go on when people are using tea tree oil on their piercings. One is that piercing bumps happen from a number of reasons. I see clients all the time who come to me and go, I have this bump on my piercing, I've been using tea tree oil on it for months, that's what everyone says to do, it's still not getting any better. And I'll take a look, and the piercing will be like the most crooked piercing on the face of the planet. So no matter how much tea tree oil you put on that thing, it's just literally so crooked, it's gonna have bumps on it and it's not gonna heal well. Or, similar situation, and I take a look at the piercing, and it has really, really low quality jewelry in it that the person is having a reaction to. We switch the jewelry to something better quality, and magically, the bump goes away and the piercing gets better. And this goes for any product that people recommend as a cure-all to put on your piercing bumps. There is no one cure-all, because piercing bumps are caused by so many different factors. You can put everything under the sun on your piercing, but if it's crooked, if it's done incorrectly, if you didn't have the anatomy to begin with, if you've got low quality jewelry in that you're reacting to, if you have an autoimmune or a medical condition that's affecting healing, or if there's lifestyle factors that are affecting healing, if you have to wear a helmet for work and that's causing irritation to your piercings, you know, things like that. No amount of topical product is going to fix bumps that are caused for all of these reasons. So right out of the gate, if you have a bump on your piercing, it's really important to figure out the cause in order to get it to go away. The other reason why tea tree oil sticks around so much is because, and I think it's important to acknowledge this, some people do see improvements of their bumps when they use tea tree oil. And this comes from two different reasons. The first being that the bump was going to kind of get better anyway. For example, if you catch or snag a piercing really hard and it gets irritated, usually over the course of a couple weeks to a month or two, that bump will heal on its own as your body recovers from the snag. But a lot of people will just see a bump and panic and start putting things on it. They'll attribute the bump to healing, not to their body's immune system and their body's wound healing, but to the stuff they put on it. But quite frankly, I see irritation bumps like that improve no matter what with all sorts of products being put on it just from being given the time for the body to do the work of healing. Again, if some miracle product existed that would allow us to heal wounds faster, we would be using it on literally every cut, scrape, pimple, and piercing that we got. It doesn't. Our bodies are ultimately what heals wounds at the end of the day. No product does that. Now, the other element of people seeing improvement with tea tree oil is that it's an astringent, which means that it's very drying. What tea tree oil does for some people is it dries up the bump and it exfoliates away in layers and seems to go down. If you're sitting at home thinking to yourself, a product that's so strong that it's literally drying up the irritation bump on my piercing might also be doing other bad things to my skin, you got it. So tea tree oil can actually cause chemical burns and toxic responses in a lot of people. And what happens when we're using it on a bump is it's functioning as an astringent and it's literally drying up that skin, in some instances almost burning it off. Now, while this may seem tempting to do to try and get a bump to go away or go down, if you're struggling with an irritation bump that's related to oiliness or wetness, there's better ways to get that to go away than a product that could potentially cause so much irritation. Changing jewelry styles can help things dry up. Incorporating manual drying into your routine using a blow dryer on a low setting or some gauze to dry things out. Even if you really were in a situation where you needed some form of astringent to dry up an area, there are other astringents that would be safer for you to use. And this is because tea tree oil and most of the essential oil markets are largely unregulated by the FDA. That means when you get a container of tea tree oil, you're not guaranteed to be getting the strength or the amount or the dilution that it says on it, because there's no regulating body looking at these essential oils and making sure that they meet minimum standards. This means if we were to go out and buy 10 bottles of tea tree oil from 10 different stores, they would have all different levels of strength. They could be from all different qualities of tea tree oil initially, from low quality to high quality. So because this market has very little regulation, just the fact that it's natural doesn't inherently make it safe. And beyond that, people can have allergic reactions to tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is only safe for topical use. It's not considered safe for any form of ingestion. The American Cancer Society reports people experiencing drowsiness, rashes, vomiting, hallucinations, and even comas from the use of tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is also very toxic to cats and dogs and can be fatal if ingested. So if tea tree oil is something you have in your house, you have to be incredibly careful of your animals. The American Cancer Society even reports that a number of people every year come in experiencing toxicity symptoms from using tea tree oil. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm just going to put it on my piercing, I'm not going to ingest it, so it's fine. But if you're using this on a nose piercing, it can easily be inhaled and get into your body. If you're using it on an oral piercing, like a lip or a philtrum, it can easily become ingested and get into your body. And most frequently, people are using this on ear piercings. And if this gets into your ear, it can actually cause middle ear toxicity and cause problems with your eardrum and your hearing. And because tea tree oil is often meant to be diluted or not used in its purest form. But like I mentioned earlier, this is a relatively unregulated industry. So not everyone knows what the proper dilution is for every essential oil. Not every bottle even says it on it. And even if it does, there's no guarantee that the instructions on the label are actually accurate for the strength of the oil that's in the bottle. And even if you buy a bottle from the same company 5 months apart, there's no even guarantee that you're getting the same strength of oil because there's no regulation. The other thing that comes down to is that when we look at studies that have been done on the effectiveness of tea tree oil, these are studies being performed in a clinical setting where they have access to the purest, most concentrated, most well-made tea tree oil that someone can use. That is not necessarily what you're getting when you get your tea tree oil from Amazon or from Whole Foods or from your local neighborhood store. Because the Food and Drug Administration does not regulate essential oils and herbs, they literally say themselves, there is no guarantee of strength, purity, or safety of products, and effects may vary. So even if we do look at the beneficial uses of tea tree oil for other things, there's just simply no guarantee that the tea tree oil you're purchasing in the store is the same type of tea tree oil used to achieve those results. Now, a lot of piercers have done a lot of education for a really long time about why tea tree oil is harmful, and I think a mistake that we've made multiple times in the past with this education is not acknowledging the ways in which tea tree oil is actually beneficial, because it is. We shouldn't be trying to pretend it's some terrible chemical. It does have good uses for a lot of things. And we've also kind of tried to pretend that people don't see results from using tea tree oil, which I feel like is a little misleading of us. I even have fallen down this rabbit hole in the past myself. I want to acknowledge that I do see some people use tea tree oil on their piercings, and I do see it have results for people. It's important for me not to hide that from you all. But the type of education that I want to share is that they're having these results often because the piercing was going to heal anyway, and it's not necessarily because the tea tree oil did anything to help it. But in instances when they did, it's usually because of the astringent, drying nature of tea tree oil. And when we look at all of the risks that come with using tea tree oil versus simply incorporating some manual drying, like with a blow dryer, if that's what's necessary for your bump, it's a lot less risky to use other methods of drying than to use something like tea tree oil, which I do so often see cause more problems, more irritations. Hell, I've had a client come in with literally a chemical burn on her nose from using a concentration of tea tree oil that was too strong, and of course the bottle did not tell her anywhere on it to dilute it. Fortunately, her nose healed just fine and the scarring was pretty minimal, but still, I see stuff like this quite often with tea tree oil. For me, personally and professionally, tea tree oil is not something that I would ever put on my piercings, and it's not something that I would ever suggest my clients use either. If you're dealing with a bump or an irritation on your piercing, please reach back out to your piercer and work with them to determine the cause. Don't be taken in by people on the internet promising a one-size-fits-all cure or a miracle product that you can put on your piercing and heal it. Anytime someone suggests something like that to you, you should be skeptical, because you should understand that bumps have all sorts of different causes. And if someone isn't taking the time to determine what's causing your bump before telling you how to treat it, that is a sign that you're not getting good advice. I hope this video helps, and I'm really enjoying exploring some of these different topics surrounding aftercare products, so I think you'll be seeing more of these from me in the future. If there are certain products that you want me to do a deep dive on, why I do or don't suggest them, let me know in the comments down below. As per usual, your support means the world to me, so please hit like and subscribe if you like my content, and I can't wait to sit down and chat with y'all again soon. Bye!